The documentary uses never-before-seen footage of fighters. Path of Blood provides an interesting view of Al-Qaeda. It uses behind-the-scenes footage taken by its own members, which is rarely shown in the main media. The documentary focuses on Al-Qaeda's Saudi Arabian cells in the early 2000s and briefly explores some of the contradictions of the Saudi state in regards to Al-Qaeda. The documentary doesn't shy away from portraying the complexities of a group that has been used by Western politicians as a reason to drum up Islamophobia. The filmmakers combine footage from Al-Qaeda, Saudi authorities, and media coverage to give the audience a deeper understanding of a group that has carried out appalling acts. One immediate observation is the comparison between home footage and the propaganda footage. The former shows us the fighters behaving in very similar ways to other young men. Looking at the footage, you can compare the Al-Qaeda fighters to the military of established state, with a sense of brotherhood. The footage also shows us the fear that these fighters had before carrying out their missions, especially those described as martyrs, who became suicide bombers. This humanizes them, showing their emotions, from joy to fear. Family footage of the fighters is briefly shown, with the children imitating their parents by mock fighting when at play. Casualty. The message is that everyone can be a casualty in war, from victims of attacks to the people left behind. The documentary could go further to investigate the connections members of the Saudi ruling classes have with Al-Qaeda. What is shown is the leaders of Saudi Arabia forcing various religious leaders to renounce their previous callings for jihad towards non-Muslims. However, the documentary does not look into how Al-Qaeda has been, and continues to be, funded by members of the Saudi ruling class. This important detail is glossed over. It is likely Al-Qaeda could have grown to any prominence had it not been for this implicit, and sometimes explicit, support. This would bring up further questions of the links between the Saudi regime, the US and Britain. The filmmakers decided to leave that hornet's nest alone, to the detriment of the documentary. It makes references to the fighters being manipulated, but fails to go far enough in explaining why and how. This is a documentary that gives us a different look at Al-Qaeda. It leaves the viewer thinking of the human side behind who the people often labeled as terrorists and monsters by the media. Even though it could go further, it goes far beyond most other documentaries covering this subject. Path of Blood, directed by Jonathan Hacker, on limited release.